All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of RetrogueVania Mania. And we got a awesome guest today, and Cory. You there?
I'm here.
All right,
Hello,
sounds
everyone.
good. The one episode I said something and you just didn't say anything for a while, so it's our guest today is a Metroidvania connoisseur slash fanatic slash I don't know, whatever. But going by the name Professor Q, and we're just gonna call him Q, I guess. Is that right?
That's just fine with me. Either one works, or you could just call me Darren. That works too.
Oh man, I didn't even know your actual name before this.
It's on my website. I put it on all my reviews.
Oh. Well, now I feel really bad.
You're all right.
Well, I don't have time to read the first lines and the last lines of a document.
It's all about the content.
Yeah, you got to read all the content.
And I do the same thing myself. I prefer to have written things so I can skim read it more easily in a lot of cases.
Yeah, so you have a website with Metroidvania reviews called Metroidvaniareview. How apt of a name is that? So, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess what do you want to know? Where should I start? I was born.
Oh, yeah. I guess we could do.
I went to school.
I don't know. How about just like what got you into gaming and what got you into, I don't know, early systems and.
Oh, sure. So my dad was like he was kind of a pirate. I didn't know about the piracy thing until I got older and really understood what was happening. But when he was in college, he built his own computer. It was an Apple II GS. He also had an Apple IIe, and he had a whole bunch of software that he had gotten for that that apparently he just copied from his friends. Didn't know that was wrong at the time, but we had a whole bunch of floppy disks of really old arcade games that apparently worked on this computer, like Rastan Taito games. Rastan's one I remember. Hard Hat Mac is another one. These are probably all games that nobody's heard of.
I have not heard of them personally. Cory, have you heard of these?
No, but I may have played them in grade school because we did have a Mac.
Yeah, it's the type of thing that you might have played in like the computer lab at school, but we also had a whole bunch of other games that were actually kind of exclusive to arcades at the time. And then, of course, we had things like the Sierra Adventure games and that sort of thing. And eventually we got a Nintendo, and we just always had video games around when I was a kid because that was one of my dad's hobbies. So that's basically how I got started gaming. And that's probably why I have an affinity towards the indie scene, because it's more close to what got me interested in gaming in the first place. I don't want to use the word nostalgia because I have gone back to games I played as a kid, and I think that they're not as good as I used to think that they were. But on that same token, I think there are a lot of games that hold up today, more timeless than others.
Yeah, actually, you seem like the perfect guest for us. Metroidvanias and indies, basically what our channel is. Yeah. So I don't know what are things we wanna learn about good old Q here. So, what got you into Metroidvanias? What was the first Metroidvania you played?
So I would tell people that the first Metroidvania I played was Metroid 2 on the Game Boy. I never played the original Metroid. And then from there, I actually didn't play Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo. I actually ended up emulating that later in high school. Was the first time I played that. I'm admitting to all of the piracy that happened in my family before I understood what it was. But Metroid 2 is what I would say is my first one. Funny enough, though, I read on the Wikipedia page for a game called Montezuma's Revenge that some people apparently think that is an early example of a Metroidvania. And I did technically play that first, I don't think it's a Metroidvania, but if you count that, then that would probably be my first one.
Okay.
As far as what kept me interested in it, I think it was the Castlevania Symphony of the Night and the DS Castlevanias. Really, I was really into those. When would those come out? Like mid 2000s or whatever.
Yeah, something around there.
And then Steam became a thing. I got a hold of Valdis Story, Abyssal Night, or is it Abyssal Night? Abyssal City. Sorry, I got that wrong. And from like a Humble Bundle or something. And that was when I first started noticing that there were just a whole bunch of different Metroidvania games coming out. And that's when I well, okay, to backtrack a little bit. When I was doing my CPA exam studies, I would listen to my lectures, and I always have to do something with my hands or my eyes while I'm listening to things. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll just play with the Steam queue thing that they have on Steam. I don't know if you've used that before, the Discovery queue.
I have not.
It
I
gives
have
you
not
like
either.
it gives you like 12 games on Steam and says, hey, look at these. And they usually kind of try and cater it to other things that you've played. Anyway, I just started going through my Steam queue while I was waiting, or well, not while I was waiting, while I was listening to these lectures. And I passed the CPA exam. So before anybody says that this is a bad study example, it helped me pay attention. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I went through all these Steam queue things. And while I was doing that, I started noticing a whole bunch of Metroidvania games come up. And then as I started getting to the thousands on my Steam queue, because there were a lot of these CPA exam lectures, I started thinking, there are thousands of games on Steam. I think that I think there's more than 50,000 at this point. At the time, it was like over 24,000. Like there's just been an explosion in games on Steam. And I'm like, there's no way that anybody can parse through all of this. And I'm finding all of these Steam pages for these Metroidvania games that are just going to get completely lost to the ether if somebody doesn't do something about it. And it wasn't just Metroidvania games; it was things like JRPGs and stuff like that. Just anything that looked interesting to me. I thought there needs to be a way that people can actually find these games, especially since there's a lot of these developers that are clearly putting so much work into this. And not every developer is also a marketer, and so they need critics that can do this, and none of the big websites are doing that. Like if it comes out on the Switch, then like Nintendo Life will review it.
Well, I mean, they don't review like everything, but
no, they don't.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, unless the game is some bigger name game, no one hears about it.
Yeah, it has to be the Hollow Knights or the Yacht Club games, or it has to have a viral success of some sort, like Undertale, that type of thing, in order to even get noticed.
Yeah, and some of these other ones are great, like absolutely great. Like I like them better than these big AAA action games.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of hidden gems that I found in this process of the Metroidvania review that I think that people should try. Some of them are niche, but I think they're worthwhile and worth considering. And so I'm like, there needs to. So I thought the best thing that could happen is that we'd have specialist reviewers, like somebody who's, because one of the other issues is that you have this huge number of opinions on what a game should be and that sort of thing. I thought that it would be good if there were critics that were specialists in genres, because then they would know, they would have their expectations of what. I mean, obviously, it's going to be a person's subjective opinion no matter what.
Yeah, but they could kind of compare just taking all of video games, they could compare how good of a Metroidvania is this compared to other Metroidvanias, as opposed to, wow, I am a first-person shooter fanatic playing the best Metroidvania ever. Oh, this game's terrible. I hate it.
Sure, right. People reviewing outside of what they like is a problem. But they'd have an enthusiasm for the genre. They would learn language to articulate what the game has in it, that people within that group might understand more fully than somebody going into it from the outside or whatever. I'm not saying that, like, you know, if IGN decided to review Destroy Space Aliens, that it wouldn't be a good thing. It definitely would be. But maybe if you have these specialists, then if you're like, okay, I like this game, this, you know, Metroidvania game as an example, uh, I'd like to see more like it. Then you go to the specialist and you say, okay, well, this specialist has a whole list of games that are similar. Let's take a look at that. That was the idea that I had in my head. And then I noticed that Steam had its curator system. And I thought, well, how about I just do a Steam curator? Or also, I wanted to play all these games. And I figured, well, as long as I'm playing them, I might as well review them. And so I started the Steam curator, and then it kind of snowballed from there.
Gotcha. Hey, Cory.
Yes.
Dude's goals and stuff basically align with ours. Did you realize this?
They do, yeah.
Getting word out for indie devs, Metroidvanias. Dang, we should contract him as our third co-host. All right, so well, how long ago has the site been actually a site compared to, like, since you transitioned from the YouTube page? Because you have how many reviews on there right now?
So actually, YouTube is something that started in the middle of last year, but the site was January of 2020.
So that's actually pretty recent too.
It is fairly recent.
'Cause you got I mean, I know there's a lot of Metroidvania games, but you got a lot of reviews up there.
Try to do one a week. Sometimes it's not easy, but I've done it for the past 3 years now. So it's been around since 2017. The curator has been. And at the time, I wasn't doing it, you know, once a week. But then, so when I started, I'm like, yeah, there's probably like 100 Metroidvanias on Steam. Not the case anymore.
Oh, sure,
it seems like five new ones get announced every week. So I'm like, oh boy, so much for. So my original plan was, okay, I'll review all the games on Steam, and then I'll just kind of review them as they come out. But then, you know, just the floodgates opened, and I don't know if it was Hollow Knight that did it or why there are so many now.
It probably was something like that.
Yeah, some kind of catalyst there. I called it the Metroidvania Renaissance in 2017. And I had no idea what I was talking about because it has gotten way bigger than I ever expected it to.
Yeah, I mean the same thing with. I mean, I came from the trophy scene, as some of you know, but it was kind of like, well, you get these easy trophy games, and then a couple years back, the floodgates opened, and it's just, oh, geez.
It can be overwhelming at times. And, you know, for a while, it kind of stressed me out. Like, there's no way I'm going to ever catch up to this. But then I'm like, do I need to catch up to it? I mean, I'm only one person, and, you know, I'm the only person who writes for the site. I have other people that help me with the site, which is why I use the word we all the time, because it isn't just me that does it, but I do all the reviews. But I figure, you know, if I do one a week, it's something that's better than nothing. So why get stressed about it? Like, I can only do what I can do.
Yeah. And then also too, when you do these time-based things and stuff, it just, even if it started out fun and it feels like a job, and you just, yeah, this chore and all this, and it just becomes unfun. And I've definitely experienced that with stuff in my past, but
sure. Well, I don't know if it's ever become unfun for me.
Well, that's good.
There are times that I get worried that I'm not going to make the deadlines I set for myself, but somehow it always comes through. So far, anyway.
Yeah. Well, what was the first game you reviewed?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Let me pull up my curator and find out. You know, honestly, I think Valda's story is what started the whole thing, which is funny because currently that's not on my website, because my review for that is like a paragraph long. And yes, actually, that is the first review on my curator. My review for that is a paragraph long. My review on the curator is barely a sentence. You know, my reviews got more complex over time. But yeah, Valda's Story was the first thing that I reviewed. That was what really made me realize that not only were there Metroidvania games coming out in the indie scene, but there was value in those Metroidvania games that were coming out.
Yeah, there's hidden gems and all that too.
Sure.
And like we said, I mean, if it's not a big, well-known game or publisher, no one's gonna hear about it. And
I think Valda's Story still falls into that category, which is why I need to get my review out for that. It's a very long game is part of the problem, and I need to replay it in order to really give it the review it deserves. Like going based off of my memory from probably 5 years ago at this point is
yeah,
not
it's a
going
long
to be fair
time.
to it.
Yeah, because me and Cory have been trying to think about doing review stuff, and you really got to take notes like while you're playing it. Like, oh man, I really don't like this thing or that thing, or oh man, I really like this, or this surprised me. Because then after the fact, it's you kind of look back and give it like a summary more so in your mind. Like
Sure.
some really terrible part to it.
My feeling on that is, and everybody has a different thought process on how they approach things. My memory has always my memory is funny, but I do take mental notes. I don't actually write things down, and in fact, I usually don't like reviewing a game right after I complete it. Like I'll give thoughts about it, and I actually even hesitate to do that because I feel like being able to sleep and kind of reflect a little bit is helpful. Part of that also for me it helps me set aside my emotions and kind of break down maybe what went wrong or what went right in that situation, and maybe where someone else might reflect on what somebody else might feel when they come across something, so I can be as helpful as possible when I write the review.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess what I was trying to get at was more so uh, the really frustrating parts that you don't like seem frustrating at the time, and then you forget how just frustrating that was after you finished the thing because you finished the thing then afterward.
Sure. I think if you're planning on doing a deep, in-depth analysis, like a really long video, kind of breaking down everything about the game, yeah, definitely take notes. Or if you're planning on sitting down and having a 45-minute discussion on them, um, that's kind of difficult to consume, though.
Yeah, that is true. Um,
uh,
Also, like if you're looking at YouTube videos or something, are you gonna click the review that's 40 minutes long? Or are you gonna click the review that's 7 minutes long?
sure. Yeah, I'm much more likely to hit a 5-minute video myself. There's some reviewers out there who like the 2-hour review on like one of my favorite YouTubers, the Gaming Brit, has his hour and a half long review of Ratchet and Clank. And if it wasn't for the fact that I had already established myself as a fan of that particular YouTuber, I probably would never have clicked that video.
I am a
Uh,
big fan of Ratchet and Clank, though. That is one of my favorite series.
yeah, I mean, he does a pretty good. He has his opinion. I mean, every reviewer has their specific angle that they come at it by, which is part of the reason why I always encourage people to express their own opinions on things. It also teaches me a lot of things too.
All right, so let's see. Cory, you got any questions?
Yeah, a few about your review process. First of
Uh-huh.
all, how much time do you sink into a game before you're comfortable reviewing? Are you playing until you roll credits? Are you playing to 100%? Or are there some that you just play 20 minutes and it does nothing for you and that's it? And you'll just write a 1 or 2 star and move on to the next?
So my rule is I have to see credits. I know that some people want to hear what it's like to 100% the game because that's important to them, and I sympathize with that. There's a reason why. The reason why I don't do to 100% is a couple of. One of them's time, obviously. That's going to be a factor. Uh, but also, if I'm not enjoying a game in the first place, I don't want to find more reasons to hate it. Or if I am enjoying a game, but it's not fun to 100% it, I don't want to find reasons to hate it. And I could mention that in the review that some of the new collectibles are tedious to get. I think I mentioned that in some of the Metroid reviews, but I'll let you find which ones those are, because I know anytime you express an opinion on any popular title, you're going to cause controversy. But
Well, you can create all the controversy you want here. No one's going to leave a comment probably yet. So.
But no, I think it's if I do 100% a game, that is to the credit of the game. Because if I'm enjoying it, like for instance, this last week I played Monster Sanctuary and rolled the credits, but I'm like, no, I got to build my best party and try PvP online, which I did and got my butt kicked. Which has ignited more competitive feelings in me that make me want to play it more. But no, my rule is that I have to roll credits or I won't review it. I've had 2 exceptions, and both of those exceptions are because the game was literally unplayable. Like I couldn't complete the game for technical reasons. But those are the only 2 exceptions I've ever made.
Okay. Yeah, I go back and forth. I can argue either way because sometimes there's long games that take 40 to 60 hours to complete. And it's my personal belief that once you make 20 or 30 hours in, you've played enough to formulate an opinion that, you know, whether or not you like the game or not. I don't think anything in the last 20% of a game, even if you just think about it philosophically for the game design, why would you save the best part of the gameplay for the last 20% of the game? That just doesn't make sense. So if the gameplay loop doesn't grab me by a certain point, I feel it's fair enough to comment on that and leave it there. But then there's
it happens though. It does happen where games, the best part is the end.
Or the most disappointing part is the end.
Yeah, that's true. But I agree with Cory, and I mean, you're gonna probably want to put your more, I don't want to say heavy hitting content, but you're gonna want to make the game good in the beginning. Otherwise, no one's gonna finish it. I mean, you could still put the best part at the end, but I think what you're trying to get at, Cory, is you don't want an abysmally bad beginning of the game, and then the latter half is just better than Hollow Knight. I guess we'll use that.
Yeah,
I will say that it depends on the genre. Something like Baba Is You, those puzzles in that game, they're not going to. I mean, I know that I know one person who's probably going to yell at me for even suggesting this idea, but like once you get the gist of what the puzzles are like, I don't think that the late game is necessarily going to alter your opinion at all. However, a Metroidvania is a little bit different. By design, it escalates. You start out weak and you become strong, or weaker than you end. And because of that, the game kind of fundamentally changes its face as the game progresses. So the last third of the game could be a very different game than those first 2/3. And I think it's important to experience that at least until the intended exit point that the designer puts in there, which is usually the end credits.
Yeah,
that's just my thought on it. And there's been a couple of games where that made the world of difference, in my opinion, of the game, was that last third of the game.
Yeah, I've experienced that just these last few weeks playing Blue Fire and Cyber Shadow. More so Blue Fire, because I really didn't like the game that much at the beginning. And then when you get more abilities and things, and your traversal of the world, of your surroundings, I guess, feels so much different, and the game feels so much better then. But
I would actually say that that's pretty typical of the Metroidvania genre. That
Yeah.
by the end of the game, you're so overpowered that it feels, or you're overpowered compared to what you were when you started, that
Well, it wasn't even in that game. It wasn't even so much overpowered. It was more so just the whole platforming aspect.
the complexity has ramped up to a point that it becomes much more interesting. I've actually heard somebody make the critique against Ori and the Blind Forest that the game doesn't even start until you have all of your abilities, which is interesting. It's an interesting perspective that their thought also was that it takes too long to get all of your abilities, which that could be a critique that you could make.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, one
But yeah.
of the reasons is because it vastly changes how the games are played. It's kind of like what you were saying, but it also allows like the amount of space you have between the new abilities, especially the ones that just really completely change games, like shift abilities and things that could be in there, or
Sure.
these really off the wall, completely change the whole game. Basically, is it does allow the developers to basically give you several kind of games in one. Like for example, this game you can only I don't know, do your typical platforming jumps and stuff and whatnot, and then we give you the ability to swim underwater. So now you have this underwater game, or fly and completely revert rooms and whatnot. And
I think it's one of the most appealing factors of the Metroidvania genre.
yes, I agree. I agree with you on that. You can keep the gameplay fresh also.
I think if I were to give any advice to somebody who is thinking about making a Metroidvania game, is plan backwards. I think that would help a lot of. I think that would help a lot of games in the long run. Is think about where you want the game to end up, and then kind of build towards that instead of just kind of randomly, designing. Well, that's true of any design. That I think that last third is very important.
Where it's not just, oh, I'm going to make this start on level, here's level 1 first. And then, oh, I should add this ability or whatever. Yeah, I think that is a good point.
I'd probably make that recommendation for anything, but too many times there's things that obviously they had no plan going into it, and sometimes they pour hundreds of millions of dollars into the project without that plan. And I don't really. I understand that things can change a lot during development, but it seems like having a plan is a good idea.
Yeah, you would think. People in this world, though, sometimes we do stuff without plans. Spur of the moment, and let's get spur of the moment, and then you wake up the next day and you're married and you're in a bed in Vegas and you're like, oh, that was a good plan.
Another point of advice: stay away from Vegas.
All right, so I feel like we tangented Cory pretty heavily there for like 10 minutes. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. There was one part in there that I thought we could do a perfect segue into what you labeled your pillars of a good Metroidvania, with exploration being the primary focus of, or at least the most important ingredient. And I'd appreciate it if you could just talk to some of those mechanics and gameplay design elements for a little bit.
Yeah, because a lot of these games nowadays, heck, I think it was even in your Discord the other day where you were saying Blue Fire is not a Metroidvania anymore, according to Steam. On Steam and stuff, everything's an RPG. Like, just the lines keep getting blurred and blurred. But as far as what you absolutely have to be a Metroidvania, what do you think?
Okay, so I guess the question is, what do I define as a Metroidvania, or
Like, what are the? Well, I guess Cory used the term pillars. What are the foundation, like the must-haves? Like, what defines a Metroidvania? I guess.
So to me, that's kind of two different questions. Like when he said pillars, I'm like, do I have that on my website somewhere? I don't remember ever listing pillars of what makes a great Metroidvania game, because that's something I think I'm constantly discovering. Ironically, I don't really look at games as being good or bad based on their Metroidvania-ness. When I go into a game, I try to do it with as open a mind as possible, in the idea that I'm looking for value in whatever the game is, whether or not it is a Metroidvania. And as far as what is the most important thing to that game, it really depends on what that game is presenting. For instance, La Mulana has exploration aspects, which is part of what makes it relatable to the Metroidvania genre. But by and far, the puzzles are the primary focus of that game. And it works for that game if you like that sort of thing. I put that qualifier in there because I know there are people who really dislike La Mulana, but it is a good example of one that doesn't really put exploration first. On the flip side, Metroid doesn't have very good bosses, and for the most part, its mechanics can be a little bit clunky, but it makes up for it with its world and atmosphere and the exploration aspect. But if you're asking me to define what a Metroidvania is, put simply, I think it's a level design focus. It's this idea that the world or the game, the approach to your game level design allows more creativity on the part of the player, and focuses on what the player can discover. And those are elements that can enhance other game designs. Steam has recently listed it as a subgenre rather than a genre. And I think that that's more accurate, especially since even looking at the two main games that make up Metroidvania, they're very different. One, you level up, it's like a JRPG. You find random loot drops and you equip yourself. Moment-to-moment gameplay, very different between Castlevania Symphony of the Night and Super Metroid. But they both share that same style of level design. And I think that is I think that is
the
what defines
base,
it.
according to Q. But yeah, I think I agree with you on all that you said there. Yeah, I mean Castlevania, Symphony of the Night and stuff. It definitely. I mean, definitely similarities, but it does feel like a different kind of game as well. But
so the generally accepted Metroidvania principles is that it has to have a contiguous world rather than levels that you go through in a linear fashion. And it has to have ability upgrades that alter the way you experience that world. Usually the double jump is the easiest example to go to.
Me and Cory's favorite Metroidvania move. What about yours? What's your favorite move?
Real quick, is it fair to say that it can't be a Metroidvania without double jump?
You can be a Metroidvania without double jump. Always Awakening doesn't have double jump, and its sequel doesn't have double jump. Barbarian doesn't have double jump. Quite a few games that don't. I think it's the idea that you gain power that enables more exploration. To me, is part of that, or is what makes it a Metroidvania. But you might run into somebody who says if it doesn't have a double jump, it's not a Metroidvania.
No, I think Cory just means it is by far the best thing, the best feeling when you get double jump. That cannot call it a Metroidvania. It's not a Metroidvania to Cory because liking that double jump.
Double jump is fun.
Well, it really does open up the combat situations a whole lot more. At least that's what I loved the most about Hollow Knight, was just zipping around the enemy arena, and if you knew what you were doing, you could never touch the ground and beat almost all the bosses on the game.
Yeah. Well, Hollow Knight is one of the top class examples of using its mechanics in interesting ways.
Well, Hollow Knight's also the thing that most people that play Metroidvanias and stuff now, that's like the reason they got into it and stuff, or they know about that one. I mean, even in like there's a couple Metroidvania discords and stuff. The people that pop in there, it's like, well, I found this genre of playing Hollow Knight and stuff, and it's like that's the only one they've ever played.
It is kind of the watershed foundational game now.
Yeah. So it's not Metroidvanias anymore. It's Metroidvania.
Metroidvania Nights.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Some people really don't like the name Metroidvania. Whatever, I can't change it. I just use it.
I like the name Metroidvania.
It's fine. Obviously, I like it enough to name my site after it.
Only half of it. Only half the name. Oh, you never say what your favorite mechanic to unlock is. It doesn't have to be like a universal thing. Could just be in one game. Well, maybe we shouldn't spoil things. I don't know. But what was your favorite one? That spoiler alert for the next 3 minutes, guys. If you want to not hear what the best mind-warpingly amazing thing is. Well, I guess you should probably say the game first.
I like how you assume that I'm going to go on for 3 minutes about it.
Yeah, it's going to be like 10 probably.
To be honest, I don't really have it depends on the game. This is one of those it depends answers. Off the top of my head, one of the coolest powers that you can get is that crystal launch power from Hollow Knight. Is probably one of the coolest looking powers that you can get in the Metroidvania game. But as far as like the ones that I enjoy playing with the most, it just depends on the framework around the power. I think that maybe if I were to name one just randomly, I think the bash ability in Ori makes that game. Like it wouldn't be Ori without that. And you go to Ori to play with that bash ability.
Okay. All right, Cory, we might have to reconsider this third co-host. He is not a fan of the double jump. Or not.
I do like
super fan. At least he's not a super.
I do like the double jump. There's a one game that I played, Pharaoh Rebirth. Highly recommend it. It's made by Team Ladybug, the same people who did Toho Luna Nights and now D-Lit and Wonder Labyrinth, the Record of the Lotus War game. You don't get the double jump until so that game actually is stage based. You pick levels, but it's a Metroidvania, I promise. You don't actually get the double jump until the last level, and then you go back to all the previous levels, and it's completely different. But it's so liberating when you finally get it that it just feels so fun to have.
I could see that. I do want to quickly say that I thought you were going to settle on the crystal dash or crystal boost from Hollow Knight, which is low key one of my favorite game mechanics I've ever used.
It's
just
a lot
to
of
be able
fun.
To fly straight across something and pass over a deep chasm that you couldn't do anything with beforehand. Now you just fly right over it. That was such a memorable moment too.
It's also one of my favorite implementations of the go really fast power in the Metroidvania. That's not uncommon, but I think the Hollow Knight has one of the coolest implementations of it.
Agreed.
I third that. Right. So let's see. What else can we ask you? Your favorite and least favorite Metroidvanias that you've ever played.
That's what I get a lot. I don't like saying what my least favorite Metroidvania is.
Okay, fair enough.
One of the reasons for that is that I know that they put a lot of hard work into it. I mean, I can't make assumptions about how much work they put into it. It might not seem that way with some of them, but you can find out which one that is pretty easily by going on my website. If you go to the reviews section and sort it by ranking, just go for whichever one's the bottom ranked at the time. I'm sure I'll find another one that surpasses it. They are interesting to talk about the games that I have rated the lowest. As far as my favorite Metroidvania, it depends on what day you ask me. Right now, the number one on my side is Hollow Knight, of course, because of course it is. But if I'm in the mood for puzzles, then the Lava Milana would be my favorite. And Super Metroid still has a special place for me. It was my number one for a long time, and if you ask me on the right day, it might still be. There is something about the way that game is designed that makes it the most timeless Metroidvania, in my opinion. I'm learning new things about it all the time from speedrunners or whoever. It's just it's a beautiful game.
All right, so I guess you are gonna you probably purposely said that to attract fans to your website. You're gonna
The
to my
Super
website.
Metroid? No.
No, I meant the you can figure
Oh,
the least favorite one.
sure.
I should have been more clear there. Yeah, go to the website and then.
The funny
His
thing is,
website's awesome. Go to his website. Seriously, he's got like these stuff to just like rank the stuff. I was like, wow, that's a great idea.
I figured if I could offer nothing else, I could offer a filter system that lets you look up specific features. So that's why I made sure that the website had that. I forgot what I was going to say about the ranking system. No, I didn't say that to get people to come to my website, but sometimes I get questions like that where I think, well, you can find that out. I've already given my opinion on it. I don't need to bully the developer more by bringing it up all the time.
Very, very respectable answer. I actually like that. Because we gotta not be negative, Cory. Our channel's all about positivity. Why did I even think to ask that?
I'll keep the positive train going. So if somebody has never played a Metroidvania before, or they're completely brand new to gaming, where would you recommend they start out? Like, what would you put into their hands and say, you're gonna like this? Maybe it's something really hard, maybe it's something kind of easy, but what would be a good like sampler for whether or not they would enjoy gaming and or gaming in a Metroidvania setting?
So those are two different questions again. I would actually not start anybody on Metroidvanias to start with. With that said, I know that there is a lady who interviewed Koji Igarashi like 15 years ago or something about Symphony of the Night, and she said that Symphony of the Night was her first game. So it can happen. I think Symphony of the Night is a great choice as far as getting into the Metroidvania genre. My personal favorite is Metroid Zero Mission because it has a low skill ceiling, or it has a low skill requirement, but a high skill ceiling. So it kind of gets you introduced to the breadth of difficulty that you could experience in the Metroidvania genre. As far as getting people into gaming in general, Kirby is one of my favorite ones to mention.
Oh man, I like that answer.
That was made for beginners. It was literally what Sakurai had in mind when he made up that character. With that said, though, I would start with graphics. I would show them pictures of games and say what appeals to you. Like, come up with some games that have appealing graphics or whatever. Mario is always a good place to start, I think, and it's a great place to start on the platforming aspect, which segues into the Metroidvania genre pretty easily.
I think you can't just show them pure pictures because, well, some games have a very cute aesthetic.
Sure, but the reason why I say graphics is because you're never going to get anybody to play anything that doesn't appeal to them.
Like
stuff. So they need to look at that and say, oh, I like that way that looks. And when you get that response, then that may be a good game to recommend to them. The important thing is don't try and force anybody into anything. I started playing Mega Man not because it has hard boss patterns and etc., which is something I appreciate about it as an adult, but because the blue man with the gun on his arm was really cool. That was why I started that. So the theming is really important.
I think that's why I picked up Mega Man when I did as a child. I just liked the big blaster gun, and that was it. I didn't. It was really hard. I don't think I ever finished it as a child, but
The reason I picked up Mega Man was from the back of a box art at Blockbuster.
Exactly. That is so. Yeah, showing them the box art is also an option. You need to get a feel of what appeals to them before making a recommendation. Not everybody's going to like the Monster Mash gothic horror of Castlevania, even though I think that is a good starting point. And not everybody's going to like the broody, lonely atmosphere of Metroid either. If you want something a little bit more happy to start them off with on the Metroidvania genre or appealing to children, Monster Boy is a great choice as well. I actually made a top 10 list of my best recommendations for beginner Metroidvania players.
Yeah, Monster Boy's been on my radar for a little while. I've been meaning to check that one out.
It's a lot of fun. I like it a lot.
I really was attracted to the art style. Now that we've been talking about the importance of how it looks and how it appeals to you, I really just like the aesthetic of that game.
It has a beautiful aesthetic. I actually pulled up my beginner game recommendation list. I have like Ori and the Blind Forest, SteamWorld Dig 2, I think is an excellent one to start with. Yoku's Island Express is a pinball Metroidvania.
That one was interesting when I played that.
Very attractive from a visual standpoint, and doesn't necessarily, it gives you the idea of what a Metroidvania is without being a platformer, depending on what kind of audience you're suggesting it to.
Yeah, I mean, I was hearing about your comments about Wonder Boy and stuff. I mean, I think some of these really cartoony looking ones, like Shantae and stuff, I really like that art style as well.
Yeah. And you know what? Shantae is probably fine too, as far as somebody starting out.
Starter. Yeah, I actually liked your answer about where would you start them out? Oh, not even a game yet, though. Let's just look at pictures and stuff like that. Don't just sit in front of a TV with a controller and say, "Here, do this."
Yeah, most of us start gaming because of the experience we want to imagine, not because of game mechanics. You don't even understand that until you get into it.
That is deep. That is very deep. That's probably why you got the name Professor. Actually, you get the name Professor Q.
I made that up years ago. It's just a screen name I've been using for ages. Q came because I was playing Oddworld on the PlayStation 1, and I didn't know what button was select and what button was delete on the name entry. And so I accidentally pushed Q when I was putting my name in. And when I tried to delete it, it started a game. I'm like, I'm rolling with it. And then after that, I'm like, I'm just going to call myself Q from now on. So I put Q on every, it's the dumbest reason, but that's why I'm Q. I'm just like, I'm going to own this now. I'm going to own this mistake.
So far, it seems like you're winning.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah, you didn't replace the letter yet.
Not yet, no. I've had it for decades, though. So anywhere else where you hear the letter Q being associated with anything, I have no association with that. Just putting that out there.
Haven't trademarked the letter Q yet.
I did watch Star Trek growing up, and I also liked the character Q on that show as well. But that is not the inspiration for it. It was because of that mistake I made, decades ago when I played that game.
Mistake or a
inspiration? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the Professor, I put that on there because I don't know. It just sounds good. Not because I'm a professor or anything. I aspired to be a professor at one point, but life gets in the way.
All right. I guess we kind of talked about this somewhat for the 100% playthrough thing, but if you had to choose between doing a speed run any percent or 100% playthrough, which would you choose and why?
Depends on the game. Like if I had to, like if I picked up a game,
Would you want to
not
like speed run? Would you want to like speed run it, or would you rather just 100% it?
so if I picked up a game, I know nothing about it, and it was a requirement that I had to do one of those two things, I'd probably go with speedrun. I enjoy it. That is one of the things I like doing is optimizing the run. Now the question is do I need to actually get a world record for it, or do I just need to go as fast as I can?
You just gotta go as fast as you can.
Oh, okay, I probably pick speedrun then. But it depends on the game. There's some games that I'll be like, yeah, I'll 100% that. That's a fun game to 100%. But not knowing about it ahead of time, I probably pick speedrun.
So I recently started watching some of the GDQs, games done quick, like the charity events, and watching some of the people clear Metroidvania or any game for that matter that took me 10 plus hours to beat, and they do it in 10 minutes. I'm
10
like,
minutes, right?
how?
Yeah.
I just watched somebody beat Super Mario Brothers 3 on NES the other day in 3 minutes.
Wow. I know about the famous one that was 11 minutes. I thought that was impressive. I wonder what new glitches they're using to get to that.
It involves a red turtle shell, and you create a glitched pipe that takes you right to Princess Toadstool.
Oh, okay, so they're inserting or they're doing arbitrary code execution.
Yep.
That to me is fascinating from a technical level. It's not as entertaining to watch from a visual level, in my opinion, depending on the game.
Yeah.
Like the speedruns for Ocarina of Time now have Link basically facing a wall in the Deku Forest until he teleports to midway through the end credits. Like it's cool that they figured it out, but I kind of like watching it the normal way.
Yeah, I kind of like watching speedruns that are not like that are glitchless and
Yeah, glitchless speedrun. Well,
playing the game kind of as it should be played, but for the most part, at least if I'm doing a speed run, that's what I want to do. I don't want to be finagling and just skipping 97% of the game. I just want it to be like, oh, I can make this jump faster by double jumping here and not double jumping there and things of that nature. That's what I would find fun speedrunning.
Sure. I don't think all glitches are made equal, though. There's some glitches that are pretty entertaining to see people pull off. There's a guy who does meme guides for like the Souls-like games. I can never pronounce his name. It's like YHM something. I'm sure that people listening will be like, "Oh yeah, we know that guy." Some of the stuff he does is absolutely hilarious. Like he glitches through fog gates and stuff like that in the Souls games. That can be fun, but also I think it's funny the idea of a glitchless speed run, because there are so many glitches that happen when you're playing a game that you don't even realize are happening. They always say no major glitches because of that. Somebody posted on the our Metroidvania Discord though that somebody was doing a glitchless speedrun of Skyrim. I'm like, boy, that must be really hard to do. They must have routed that game perfectly to avoid glitches.
Yeah, when I played Skyrim, you could literally walk up any mountain because
I think you still can with a horse.
well, I mean, like even without it, you could just jump up, keep continually jumping, and eventually you would climb up just any wall. From what I don't know, that's sad to say that is one of my things I remember the most about Skyrim.
That can be fun too, though. Sometimes the glitch can save a game. In fact, I think Street Fighter, the whole, I think I read that the combos, like the hit stun and being able to lock somebody into an infinite combo wasn't intended, but it was also so popular that it just kind of became part of the game.
I recall hearing that a while back too.
Yeah, complete hearsay. I don't have any backup on that, so if I'm wrong, I apologize. But
I think there is some credence to what you're saying, because I have heard that separately too.
But it's an example of. But my point is that sometimes a glitch can make it into a game, and the developer likes it so much that that becomes a core part of the game.
All right. Well, we are approaching about an hour now. Has he got any more questions, Cory? Dead?
I do have. I'll do one quick one for you.
Okay.
What's the most important thing to get right in a Metroidvania?
I think so. I said this before, and let's see if I can word it the way I said it at the time. The most important thing to me is that you have a vision and that you execute it well. I think when it feels like there's no point to anything that you're doing, or if it feels like you're engaged in an activity that just feels like a waste of time, that's where your game falls apart. If you have a singular goal that you are trying to create with your game, like in the case of Metroid, it might be the atmosphere, the presentation of the narrative, or whatever your game is about. Find something meaningful and execute it, and do everything you can to execute it appropriately.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think that is something definitely important.
And then with that said, then what is the most important for that game can change depending on what the game is.
Okay, I like that answer. The visual that came to mind as you were describing that, especially way back in the beginning of our discussion here, is when you build from the bigger vision backward. The thing that popped up in my head is like you're building a ramp, but you know where the lip of the ramp needs to end. And if you just started building a ramp from the base, you would never know, like, oh, am I accelerating, or is the ramp inclined too much? And then you have to worry about all kinds of other things. But if you know exactly how high and how far you want to build the ramp and then work back from there, it's going to turn out a whole lot better. And so that includes your pacing and your abilities and everything else that goes into defining and building a great Metroidvania. You're just starting out on a much better piece of real estate if you do it that way versus, oh yeah, I have the first level is this ability and the second level is going to be this one, and it's just poorly optimized and poorly paced. Then you wind up with something that isn't going to make your end goal, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Yep. The visual I had in my mind as you're describing that analogy was that old 90s game, The Lemmings. Have you seen that game? Or Lemmings is just plain Lemmings. Have you seen that game before?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
So they build the ramp up. You don't want people to climb up your ramp and then fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
Or fall at all, for that matter.
I feel like that's all the Lemmings ever did for me, was just go off the cliff.
Same here.
Well, that is why they were called the Lemmings, right?
All right. Well, I got nothing else. I guess you have anything else to add, say, Professor Q?
No, I thank you for having me.
All right. Well, I guess we'll do the wrap up stuff here. Social media and links and places people can find you at. Where can they?
The best place to find me is the Metroidvania, or just Metroidvaniareview.com. No space between Metroidvania and review, of course, because of the URL. And then links to their social media is right there on the site.
All right, yeah, and I will link in the description anything, any links you want me to. Just send them my way. Cory, where can they find you?
You can find me on all of your gaming platforms: Nintendo Switch, Xbox, and PSN. I am CoreDog411, and that is also my Twitter handle. That's CORDAWG411.
And then you can also find me streaming on Twitch at, well, right now. It's going to change in 3 weeks when I can actually change the name to RetrogueVania. But right now it's retro_vania. Link that's in the description. Twitter, RetrogueVania, and Discord. And we'll put the links in the description. But hey. And then also to trying to find indie devs that want to, I don't know, maybe get interviewed or have their games spotlighted. Kind of ones that fit our channel theme, Metroidvania-ish, retro-inspired indies and things like that. Yeah, if anyone knows anyone that would be willing to come on, that would be awesome too. All right, so with that being said, everybody, have a good night, good morning, enjoy your games. Thanks for listening, and hopefully I'll see you guys again next time. Goodbye, everybody.